How you doing? Did you have a good weekend? I don't know where you're watching this from, but where I'm from, the weather's getting warmer and spring is in the air, and yeah, moods are lightening up. And we're still here doing the 10 Commandments, 5 on 10. And we're on Commandment 6. So in the lightening of our mood, we're dealing with a pretty heavy commandment. You shall not commit murder. Now, it's not quite so accurate, or it's even a bit misleading to go to the old, I think it was probably the King James Version that got most of us when we were young children to memorize, thou shalt not kill. Killing is another thing. This command 6, is not an absolute against all matters of killing. And you sort of know that just contextually. This is part of Moses, the law of Moses, the 5 books of Moses. And clearly there are stipulations in Moses' law for animal sacrifices. And there are stipulations in Moses' law for the provision of capital punishment when it's called for. And you could even say Moses sort of introduces us to the book of Joshua and eventually the book of Judges, where there's sort of war, there's violent war against the Canaanites as Israel is going into their land. And so don't see this as just a total absolute against killing. This is something much more specific. Now, someone can make a case, and I'm okay with that. You can make a case for pacifism or for vegetarianism, I guess. Even maybe you could make a biblical case. I think there's books out there on that. Just don't start with Commandment 6. It's not the best place to start if you're going to make that case. This is about murder. You shall not murder. And murder, in some ways, the best way to define murder here would be the unrighteous and unauthorized taking of another human's life, of the taking of innocent human blood. And it is human. The main idea is that it's tied to the image of God in humans. It's killing another human. Romans 13, Genesis 9 will bring that up again as sort of the basis of it. You're not to take the life of someone made in the image of God. And so thou shalt not murder. Don't hear sort of the Buddhist idea that this is all life. And you can make a case, and certainly the brutal treatment of animals again and again and again is, it's absolutely cruel. There's no justification for that at all. Again, not sure I'd use this command for that, but that is not to say that kind of action is justified, not at all. But this is about murdering another human. And so certainly where this comes in, it would be sort of the justice of capital punishment. Yeah, sure, talk about that. Does the Mosaic law allow for capital punishment? Yes, and so does, in a sense, depending on how you read it, so does the New Testament in the book of Romans. And yet, to be able to interpret the tea leaves of our society, where there seems to be a massive injustice on who capital punishment is administered to, both depending on a person's race and depending on a person's finances, how rich or poor they are. It sure seems like the poor and the non-white, often the blacks, are the ones that are suffering capital punishment more than any others. So, okay, that's another issue. Thou shalt not murder. It's got to be an authorized, and it should be justified too. I think you could introduce this about war. Pacifism, again, I talked about that. Some people can be that. That's okay. I don't think it starts here. You have the just war theory by Augustine, where, okay, as a last resort, as the lesser of two evils, where civilians are not involved, or weapons of mass destruction, surely in our society, could be introduced in there. Okay, let's talk about that as well. Does this command allow for war? Yes, with all of these sort of caveats taken into consideration. And so what's going on right now in Ukraine and Russia, Absolutely not. Civilians are being targeted. At least from Russia's perspective, it wasn't a defensive war. It was an aggressive war. Okay, does this command address war? Yes. And I don't think what Russia's doing applies here. I think what they're doing is absolutely against this command. Or even abortion, the sanctity of life, of the unborn, of the embryo, with exceptions. It would be true today that the unnecessary taking of the unborn's life, is it a break of the sixth commandment? Yeah, it is. And so an unjust war like Russia, break of this commandment? Yes. The administration of capital punishment to wantonly to one group as opposed to another? Yes. Abortion? Yes. Yes. God is against murder. He's against unauthorized, unjust killing. And I'm afraid we see it a lot. And yet, let's also remember Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount. You've heard it said, don't commit murder, but I say to you, and then he talks about hateful thoughts and insensitive, insulting words. So maybe that applies to you right now. Who are you hating right now? Who are you insulting? If you're a Christ follower, that shouldn't be part of your life any more than murder should. The Apostle John would write in 1 John 13, and we'll end with this. Anyone who hates his brother is a murderer. It starts with the heart. Okay, we covered a lot. It's kind of heavy. This was more almost 7 on 10. Sorry. We will go to the next command next time. I think it's you shall not commit adultery. So long. See you.